infested district in Baltimore, obviously a majority black district. I wouldn't say that about Utah or Colorado, that's for sure. And this kind of deep fear of people who are trying to push the country in the better direction, who just maybe don't happen to look like you. Anyone who speaks up about anything, doing probably the most American thing one can do, by way of speaking up and trying to make a difference, trying to make a change. That is, you cannot get more American than that in your intentions and in your beliefs. And that reaction really shows where the president's head was at and his supporters in 2019. America was also rocked by two mass shootings in the late summer, early fall. One at an El Paso Walmart done by white supremacists that specifically targeted people, Mexicans, Latinos, and another shooting in Dayton, Ohio, that restarted and reinvigorated the need for gun violence in this country. Gun control in this country. A conversation that proved this time to be, as it usually is, very ill-fated. The Jeffrey Epstein saga this year came up as quickly as it began. Started, of course, with new charges against Jeffrey Epstein for sex trafficking in what was truly one of the craziest stories this year, if not the craziest. The revelations of a deeply powerful sex trafficker, pedophile, who seemingly trafficked young girls to the most powerful people in the world, including Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. They were both on his flight logs in which he would take little girls to his private island, Little St. James in the Caribbean. Also on those flight logs, famous lawyer Alan Dershowitz and the royal Prince Andrew, who capped off the year with an absolutely stunning interview, which I will give you the misfortune, if you choose, of going to watch for yourself if you haven't heard about it already. So this guy, this mysterious pedophile, he was killed just as quickly. I'm going to say it, he was killed in the Manhattan Correctional Facility. You can watch Red Alert for more on that. Another story that we had the misfortune of covering this year on Red Alert. But yeah, so Jeffrey Epstein, his life ended just as quickly as it began, and the case against him now seems cold. In another example this year of the powerful, seemingly able to get away with things that normal people can't. Being able to, quote-unquote, off himself or have himself murdered, or in whatever way he ended his life, he pretty much was able to get away with and escape retribution, especially in the early aughts case, that when he got accused of pedophilia the first time, where he served 13 months for what obviously normally would carry a life sentence in a Palm Beach prison. He was negotiated, a special plea deal was negotiated with his dream team of lawyers. He was able to get work release, pretty much only slept again at this minimum security Palm Beach prison in which he stayed for 13 months. And of course, the person who negotiated the deal, Alexandria Acosta, became Trump's labor secretary, continuing the long saga, or the long list of examples of powerful people working to help themselves and help their friends get away with awful, awful deeds time and time again. And a big theme, I think, we're seeing so far in 2019. The Epstein saga really, though, inflamed conspiracy theories. Of course, as you can see, some may call me a conspiracy theorist, but again, this is the evidence there was, I think, a big thing for me that really disillusioned me towards the powerful and elite and the quote-unquote people on top in this country in 2019. And then, in the fall, a whistleblower complaint and Nancy Pelosi finally changing her mind on impeachment. The allegation from this whistleblower in the intelligence community and the CIA was this. President Donald Trump, in a July 25th phone call with Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, had asked Zelensky to investigate Joe Biden and specifically his son's work at the Burisma gas company for suspicion that he may be able to find some dirt on Joe Biden for the upcoming 2020 election, and that he would only get military aid, crucial military aid from the U.S. to his country of Ukraine, if he did so. This was a clear abuse of power, and that actually ended up being one of the impeachment articles against him that just recently, this month, passed the House of Representatives. The trial is set to take place, obviously, in the new year, in 2020. But nevertheless, this was a big, big story that kind of petered off as the impeachment process went on, granted, but still is set to define politics for at least the next year until the 2020 election. We kind of knew he was going to get acquitted in the Senate, but as Nancy Pelosi said, it's not the right thing to be doing it for political reasons. Like, if you're worried about, you can't just let the president get away with doing these things, if you're worried about how it's going to blow back on you politically. Like, there are norms to protect here. That was Nancy Pelosi's view of it. It still, though, does remain to be seen how it will impact her and the Democrats politically. So that's going to be probably something we're going to talk about in next year in review show, a year from now. Americans were angered when the U.S. decided to pull out of Syria, leaving the Kurds in the dust to face a harsh invasion from Turkey's authoritarian leader Recep Erdogan. These were, of course, the people who helped us destroy the ISIS caliphate, and Trump leaving them in the dust angered many, many people, including some prominent Republicans such as Lindsey Graham. Also, Americans were really shocked and concerned and dealt with another year of devastating wildfires in California, worldwide heat waves, and the burning of the Amazon rainforest, as climate change continued to be a bigger and bigger factor on people's minds.
It's the lungs of our planet, the Amazon rainforest, and right now it is burning. Well, we start with the heat wave that continues to batter India. Extreme temperatures across the north and the east of the country have caused hundreds of deaths.
3 weeks of raging fires setting off alarm bells around the world.
Images emerged on Monday of Sao Paulo in the afternoon, blackened by smoke.
Nearly 1 million species are at risk of extinction because of humans.
Venice waiting for relief from days of what forecasters call exceptional flooding. The rising water.
The Missouri River crested to its third highest flood level on record. The Missouri River's flooding.
Just a small taste of what was going on our planet this year, and sometimes you need someone small to fight it.
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
Greta Thunberg galvanized a lot of people with her desperate calls from the young generation. Shout out my fellow 16-year-old Greta Thunberg to possibly do something about climate change, because the fact is we are how many years away? 15, 12 years away from massive global catastrophes, irreparable human harm and damage. Like, this is a crisis on a global scale, and more people started acting like it in 2019. Massive climate protests took place across the country, with people walking out from their schools and joining a massive climate march one Friday in September. It was a real show of force that the young generation may be the one to end this. We've been talking a lot about over these past 38 or so minutes about the rise of protests and the anger at authority. This wasn't just taking place in Hong Kong, it was taking place across the world.
In Hong Kong, protests continue. They've been going on.
The tense week in Chile after violent protests.
Bolivia's political unrest turned
Streets of Beirut in Lebanon for a third day.
Iranians have taken to the streets by thousands.
Across Egypt, calling on President.
Plans against controversies of Ecuador to protest the president.
Now, Algeria has been rocked by.
Across the world, in dozens of countries, protesters have taken to the streets. Demonstrators are united in frustration with economic disparity and unrealized economic expectations.
There's no other way to say it. 2019 marked a conclusive death of neoliberal politics. I think it's very clear that from here on out, we either go left or we go right. There's really no in between. Whatever this year does bring in news and politics, Newsflash will cover it for you. Here's another thing we'll cover. What happened this year at the cinema? Hello everyone, my name is Spencer Walsh. Here's what's happening on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. We have Newsflash, always new every Sunday, and of course with new episodes occasionally on Thursdays, bonus episodes. Also for you, we have Red Alert, new at 11 p.m. every Monday, Uncultured, new at 8:30 p.m., live at 8:30 p.m. every Friday, the best mix show in the game. And also, we have a brand new line out, repping your generation, insulting the old world, repping the young world. Our new OK Boomer merch line is out now. Check it out on Spreaker.com/GSWS. Alright, so welcome to our conversation today about the year in review when it comes to movies. And the business of making movies, in Hollywood at least, is very much that, a business. And taken as such, Disney, once again, absolutely killed it this year. Avengers Endgame was the MCU's MVP, no surprise, acting as the climax of 11 years and 22 films. The Russo brothers' extravaganza took $2.8 billion at the box office to jostle James Cameron's Avatar from his position as the biggest hit of all time. And with Lion King, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man Far From Home, and going with Sony, Aladdin, Toy Story 4, Frozen 2, all surging past the magical billion-dollar barrier, and even so-called flops like Dumbo and Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, taking $353 million and $481 million, respectively. Disney has crossed the $10 billion threshold in box office hits. Pretty much everything big, almost everything big, I believe it was something like 80% of all box office hits were Disney-related. So it was an absolutely killer year for Disney. I think that's something as consumers, it can't last forever, obviously. And I think there's going to come a point where we, as film consumers, in it of itself, we're going to have to just kind of come together and say, wait a minute, what do we want when we go to cinema? Is it always going to be Disney? Is it always going to be superhero movies? I don't know. But the truth is, this year, we said we always wanted it to be. So there is that important thing to take in. But consider the previous annual record for a single studio was $7.6 million. Just $7.6 million in 2016. Again, registered by Disney. And the aforementioned $10 billion doesn't even take into account the receipts generated by 20th Century Fox, which Disney this year acquired, or the deafening Kerching greeting of Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. That is particularly impressive. Yeah, so this isn't just a year-end profit. They still have one of the biggest movies of the year coming out, and kind of in the process of coming out now, which is The Rise of Skywalker, which was, I'd say, pretty mixed reception, but still, that's a kind of movie, however good or however bad it is, everybody is going to go see it because it's Star Wars. And probably going to make a bunch of profits. So you can add another however many million to that $10 billion total. At a time where cinemas are being challenged by the ever-growing streaming market, Disney are getting people out of their homes and away from their phones to immerse themselves into a full theatrical experience, says Jane Crowther, editor-in-chief of Total Film magazine. You just can't argue with the numbers. So that's the reality of the situation. Like, Disney is absolutely killing it and pretty much owns cinema at this point. They have a monopoly on the box office, or at least they did in 2019. And the diversity of the films that they put out in terms of style and appearance and subject matter is very, very prevalent. I think it pays a good role to their just octopus-like success over the entire. Like they've got their fingers pretty much in every cinematic pot. That's a pretty incredible thing to see, and something that we did see with Disney this year. We'll talk about a big fight